May 10th, 2016. Or maybe you're not delusional and they're trying to speak, but you're fighting yourself because you can't wrap your mind completely around the idea it's actually happening. You're not the reincarnation of anything because you wouldn't be considering it's not physically possible. And it would be stupid to think that you really would be delusional for you to think so. You know something? Reading through this is actually really hard. It just shows me how sick I was at the time. I'm hoping you're enjoying it. I'll get through it, but it's just fascinating to see how much it's affecting me while I'm reading through it again. Because I haven't looked at this in quite a while. Anyway, back to the show. At the same time, there are pop culture markers designating you as Peter, which can mean stone, the right hand of God, or something else with a marking you can't figure out. That there is a group interested in you for some reason, and that they've been recording your life since you were a child. What is the significance of being 9? That was when you went to Australia, then the US. February 10th, 98, you would have been 9 years, 5 months, 8 days old. It started as far as you can see with Doc Martin and continued through there after you realized what they were doing. Though you don't really know what they were doing because the idea that you're special enough to constantly be monitored is one thing and freaky in of itself, another to be told you're special and you have 5 years, that they kept blurting out Jesus Christ as you walked past them, though those could be coincidences. But firstly, if he lived, he had already passed and I couldn't be him on my own person. Then there's the idea that you're not him and have become confused from prolonged stressing out about the situation and started to make your own answers because nothing else made sense. You know they're partially government run because S is moving to the area, though you don't know why, or why he would choose to do so considering his whole life has been in the BA, but you'll find out once he moves up here. You know that they are Air Force and Army related because they wear the insignia and the way they stand at attention to each other. It looks like military people can't help to stand up straight when near each other. You also know the Skunkworks folks were involved before you got ill and said too much. I wonder if I had a better chance of being a part of the group before you got too ill and gave up the ghost. But then there's the fact that the pop culture references of the Griffin made light of the issues before being honest, so they knew. So what did it hurt to tell the truth anyway? Since they knew, it must have been safe to say, plus the lady said yay as she walked by at the Christmas bazaar when you were definitely more ill than you are now. Does the sickness spread out and permeate every part of you, or are you able to keep it consolidated to parts of your life and beat it back over time from constant work against failure, or does it circumvent the work and leak out and around the barriers you erect? Not Brian, but my drawing was on an episode of 4 of Limitless and they cracked a dick joke, which I guess they do because they can find it funny. Why is it that when you're near a group, they always find a reason to make fun of you? You eventually bring it on yourself after a while, but before that, there's always a time period where they don't need to be aggressive, but choose to do so. Like the guy at the pizza place throwing food at you over and over, why does that interaction type keep happening, and how do you work it so it stops happening and you can learn to be happy around other people? You must have felt that before at some point, but it never feels like it actually ever happened. Even in a group setting like orchestra or at a party, you felt out of place, singular, but could never put an idea to words about it. It just always was. The closest you felt to friendship in a long time was at the Magic Card night at Jay's. It would have been fun, even if you'd lost, but they set up your deck and made it easy to play so that you got to see what it was like to think logically about a battle board, which is always fun, though I wondered why it's not hard. I kept hoping to find something truly hard to work on to see what I can learn about it and myself, to see if I can improve myself beyond feeling used and poked fun at. If just doesn't seem to stop, and I don't understand what to do to help make it stop. How do you build trust in something you have no business knowing about? Though they said I should have figured out earlier, but I just didn't see the markers in the proper order before then, and I had to get ill enough to break out of the perspective I had built up, like I did back when I started to get suicidal. Why is it that the norm to want to self-destruct when viewing something in opposition? It's not cowardice, but despair at not understanding. A successful person feels peace in their actions and feels that what they do matters in a sense that it may make a useful change in their or someone else's lives. You could 3D print the housing for the rotational generator since it's already been leaked into the subconscious through video games and probable patterns and patents. But if you make it and get it spinning, what material do you use to make a capacitance material when you can't afford the material itself? They used to use iron plates, but also you can't afford the hard materials to build the resistance wells. The resistance wells need to accept the buildup of the brushes in the closed state. See, this is the problem. You can't stop thinking about the group, and it affects literally everything you do because it's all some action against them or for them, and you're split between relinquishing the idea of yourself as it is currently and what it could be with them, though they've said they're not giving you anything which you just can't understand, because what was the point of setting up the watch routine, bringing people to interact with the unit, and denying access to any and all help when it's asked for help, as best as it can. It doesn't know what to do or what to work on because it can't test the validity of its designs in its current state, but can't take the time to go to school to have a limited amount of things built when it could just work with some team and work out the kinks in a few hours of discussion or less, because all it's really asking for is a sounding board to work off of and direction to getting things concretely produced so it can make a living from its ability to create. I have to learn how to make something from drawing to physical build. Why not make it a brushed capacitor that sits between two magnets glued together, rush through the magnet itself, and as it spins, if the drag terminal is on ball bearing runners and is greased, then it would make a circular charge as it spins, producing a low grade output, and if you pushed against the mass of it from the underside and gently from above, but you had a wire dragging from those ends, then it would make a brush charge from connecting areas. Though it would be easier to make a difference brush and getting the intermittent, but it wouldn't wear down like the drag line and wouldn't slow from running, that you could have a free floating block behind to force the brushed version along. It's probably all been done before though. The friction increases as the speed increases, but if the static friction is much lower than the pushing force of the pushing blocks, then it would act like wind turbines against the rotation of the Earth and be inconsequential. Though that very idea is laughable because there's no such thing as free or non-slowing friction, though you could put them on a runner or make them very, very, very small, though that makes the output smaller. I have to find a job that's mentally worthwhile because the body breaks the mind down and wears it out while the mind jumps ahead with basic ideas because I can't figure out a way to get things made on its own. You need to see the math of what? And how do I get a job that isn't just something menial that drives a psychosis because it's still against the grain of knowing about this? Though you can make a capacitor an atom thick, which is small enough to be pressed by the magnetic fields of the spinner's core, and if the inside mechanism is brushed, then and the field is great enough and close enough, you still get the generated charge as though the capacitor's material wasn't there, because they still have to make it through the material's molecules' whole structure. And if the rail it travels within are negatively charged, they naturally draw the brush's charge towards them, which can be led down to a battery pack cycled by the trickle effect, which can feed a larger battery given the right fill state, essentially letting you draw off less than it produces over a given set of revolution. So it remains near topped while running and filling while not, and if using a feedback loop so that when the battery is filled and it starts to push back, you could have a drainage battery that bleeds off energy after being filled. Solid, Anton software for the iPad, and draw out the designs and see what happens. please visit anchor.fm/divergentmind to leave a message so that I may get back to you. Thank you. Have a nice day. So I've had some notes about the podcast already, which is great. I need to stop saying and so much, or at least edit them out, which is fine. It's extra work, but it's totally reasonable. Just wanted to say thanks for the message, and I'll improve my show because of it.